thankful. I'm so excited to have this chance to talk with you. I don't think that we actually have even like sat down one-on-one since you joined coaching club and have been in for a period of time to like reflect. So this is really going to be really fun for me also. But I want to welcome Adrienna here. Adrienna she is someone who we've been connected online in some capacity for a while, like a long time in the internet world, right? You were the first VA that I hired like years and years ago, which was an amazing experience, and I grew to love you. And so I know you through that, and since that time together, you have grown the most successful, amazing businesses from my eyes. We can talk about that as we get into it. But that's who you are to me. And inside Coaching Club, you are just this like ray of sunshine. I know you probably don't feel that way sometimes because Coaching Club is the place where people bring their stuff to talk through. But that's how you feel to me in the group, because you come just so open and honest and humble and all the things. And so I admire that so much, and I value you being in the group so much. So that is how I see you. Now, I would love if you could introduce like really how you present yourself and what your business is.
So I own a marketing agency for wedding professionals called Ava and the Bee. I also have a second business, which is kind of, taking a little back seat for the time being, but I do have a series of courses that teach students how to become virtual assistants inside the Creative VA Academy. But my main big one I think that we've eventually connected on was Ava and the Bee, because I used to be a virtual assistant. So I got started as a virtual assistant, and then kind of over the last 5 years, kind of pivoted, I guess, or just kind of grew into the agency that it is now.
Yeah. Okay. So I want like a very quick sped up timeline of how that happened, because Ava and the Bee was just a virtual assistant thing for creatives at first. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started Ava and the Bee in 2018. I used to be in the wedding industry. That was my background. I had recently sold my half of a wedding planning, floral, and bridal boutique company that I owned. And Ava and the Bee was born because I had friends that needed help and I needed money. And so I became a virtual assistant. I just kind of did it on the side for general creatives. A lot of my clients were just naturally wedding people, just because that was the only industry I've ever really known was the wedding industry. But I worked with a lot of really great creatives and local small businesses in Savannah. And so that was 2018. And then I did that for a few years. And then I started really niching down to just weddings, wedding professionals. I think like 2020-ish, like right before the pandemic is when I think I officially was like, okay, like we're just going to focus on weddings. And that was because I was at a stage where I was starting to consider growing a team. So it was about 2 years in that I was like being more serious about growing a team. I had contractors for a bit, but nothing super like permanent. So that was when I started to actually think about growing the business and niching down.
Awesome. So I'm just curious, why is it that you decided to grow a team? What were you up against?
So a lot of it for me around a team was I just simply wanted to serve more people. So for me, when it was just me, I got to a stage in my business where I was incredibly, incredibly blessed that I was booked out and there was no way I was ever going to have time in sight. Like I just got to the stage where enough people wanted to work with me that they would wait for months and then I would still not have openings. So it really kind of came out of a necessity, because I could have totally probably just like tripled my pricing and only worked for 5 people. But I saw how important and how needed marketing was for wedding pros, because I was in their situation once and I had wished I was out there, so I kind of saw that. And that's honestly why I grew it, was just, I saw that I could serve more people if it wasn't just me 24/7.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that shift a little bit too, because you went from being like a VA to now you are a full blown high level marketing agency for wedding
Weird.
professionals.
Yeah, when I
I
hear
know.
that word agency, it still does not ring that it's
Do
real,
you
but
think of it
yes.
as an agency? What do you think of it as?
I don't know, but it is. I mean, I guess whenever I tell people what it is, they're like, "Oh, you run an agency." So it is. I mean, we have a
Yeah.
team
You're
and
just like not going to an office every day with like white desks and people
yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah, like
totally.
I think of agency, I think of like my husband who works at a Fortune 500 company and the agencies are like,
Oh yeah, yeah, that
like that's what I think of
totally.
agencies. So like, yeah, but it is
Yeah.
technically kind of, it's like a boutique agency. It's little, but we have a
Yeah.
team. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So you have been in my world as a coaching client for a little over a year, been like a
yes,
year and maybe a month-ish, or
yeah.
maybe a half a month-ish. We're right around a year. So I want to know from you, like, where were you at mentally, emotionally? Where was your business at when you reached out to me?
I just laughed because I was kind of a mess. So I was kind of at a stage where I had worked in a different coaching capacity that was more of a mastermind setting. It was wonderful. It was ending. And so I had a bit where I wasn't in anything and was kind of content with that. I wasn't sure what I honestly was looking for, but I knew that I was becoming burned out. I knew I was becoming just not loving every aspect of my life and my business. And I think when I came across you, I mean, I'd already known you. So then when I saw the coaching club, I think what really spoke to me was that it was focused on goals. But yet, when I discovered more about it, it wasn't just goal setting, right? So I think for me, initially, my initial hook was goals, something I've never been good at. So goal setting, you can ask anyone who knows me. I don't set goals. I don't do it. I don't know why. I'm not a goal person. Financial goals is like the biggest capacity you're going to get out of me, as I have financial goals and I have nothing else. So I don't have like emotional or lifestyle goals, and I just never did. And so at first I was like, okay, I think I need something that's going to give me a container to actually start having goals, because I think part of my burnout was that I was not appreciating the success that I had had. Like, I feel like I was in that rat race of like, it wasn't enough. And I was just at that stage where I was like, well, when is it going to be enough? Like, when is it going to feel like it's enough? That epiphany that I feel like we sometimes think is going to just happen as a business owner. And so I was like looking for that. I was like, I just need something to like make me feel like I'm doing enough in my business, that it's like, okay. And so when I reached out to you, and at first, like kind of the initial was like, I loved that it was like monthly, like it didn't feel as heavy. I think at the time it was like, I was trying to tiptoe into goal setting and to thinking about my business. So the idea of monthly was like, okay, I can do that, right? Like I can make a goal for April. Like I can do it. It's especially if someone's there telling me to actually do it. But I think what I discovered was it was so much more than that. Like it opened up so much more about myself that wasn't just about goal setting. But that was my
Right?
initial thought, was like, okay, this is a great container for me to think of my business in a monthly setting. And then it turned into month.
Yeah. So I'm really curious because like you had a business that was growing. Whether you really felt satisfied with that growth or not is maybe another question, but you had a business that was growing. You had consistent money coming in.
Mhm.
There's kind of two buckets of people that come to me. The
Yeah.
first bucket is like the people who are their goals are like really growing their business, financial goals, maybe like team goals, etc. And then there's other people that come in and they are kind of in your spot where they're like, in terms of they've like hit some sort of capacity or some sort of plateau or some sort of like they've reached some level that they thought they were maybe never going to reach,
Yeah.
and still kind of felt the same way and still wanted growth, but then it's like, I don't even know what that looks like anymore.
Yeah.
that's more of the bucket that you were in. So I'm curious in your, like with where you were at the time, what kind of goals were you thinking about that drove you? Like, was it still financial or was it
Yeah.
other things?
I think a lot of it was financial / like you said, team. So like, okay,
Yeah.
like hiring another person or making, and for me, I think a lot of it, I only thought of goal setting that it had to be financial. Like in my mind, that was the only way to run a business was like dollars, right? So I need to
Yeah.
hit XYZ to achieve XYZ. So yeah, that was kind of my initial, like, was financial. Because I was
Yeah.
hitting plateaus, you know, I was kind of like, okay, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's most people, like there's people who either haven't mastered like the marketing and sales, and that's part of what they have to work on inside the goal framework. But then there's people, and there's actually a decent amount of people in coaching club who are marketers, like run marketing agencies, and who are really good at marketing and sales. And I think from the outside perspective, or the person who's like hasn't quite learned that machine yet, they think that's the only thing that you need to then grow forever. And it's like marketing and sales is one piece of the business puzzle. It's a very important piece.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, but it's one piece of the puzzle. You still hit plateaus, come up against roadblocks, have stuff you have to work through, all of that, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what's between then and now? Like, give me what's one word. You might not like this question because you might not have an answer. What's one word that you would use to describe the past year that you've had? It's okay if it doesn't have to be positive.
No, I think it's been positive. And I would say I don't know if I can think of one word, but I think for me, it's owning my success. 3 words, owning my greatness and success, which is very uncomfortable for me to say. But I was just thinking before this call, my mutual friend, Allie, who eventually joined coaching club with me, over the last year has repeatedly said, like, I can't believe how much you've grown, but not necessarily your business, but like how much you've grown as a person. So if I guess for me, it's like so much of my growth was me. And I think that directly related in the success of where our business is going.
Yeah. So that's my next question is like, so getting like comfortable with that success.
Yeah.
And like welcoming it in, which is still like, that's like something that some people have to work on at every level. A lot of people have to work on that at every level, right? So what is how does that bleed into your business? What are some things that are tangibly different?
I think a lot of it's been, I think, a few different ways. I think whenever you're able to like own your successes, I think it makes mistakes easier because you're able to understand that like you're still good at what you do. I think so much of being like, I'm such a feeler and an empath that whenever I'd make mistakes, it was more I made the mistake. Me as a human, as an individual, failed. Instead of now, it's like learning. It's like, okay, we as a team made a mistake, but it's fine because we can get to the next step. It's not like I failed, And I think as a business owner, when you're able to see that the business isn't only you, even if you are a solopreneur, but to see your business as like not your twin, I think can be nice, because I think as business owners, we only think of our success as our business, when sometimes I think our personal growth is actually like, and how I've seen it change our business is like, I feel more confident in our decisions, and I actually feel more confident in our marketing. Like I finally am able to just say what I want to say in our marketing. And I was scared to step into that like thought leadership role of the wedding industry. I was like, no one's going to want to listen to me. Like I'm nobody. But then I realized that they actually do want to hear what I have to say sometimes. And I think that has helped me then grow the business based off that, right? Because people then became attracted to that. They were like, oh, like tell me more. And then it allows us to then serve them.
Completely. I mean, I think when You had an intention to be doing speaking stuff, getting speaking gigs when you came in. Had you had any before that?
Little. So the whole speaking and educating side of my business came because people came to me and asked me to speak for them. But yeah, I really focused the last year on actually like stepping into that as being part of the business and like my career, which is crazy.
Yeah. What you're describing is this like deeper confidence. It's not the confidence that's like, look at me, I'm so great, but it's this like grounded, I know that I'm good at what I do and I have something important to say.
Yeah. And I think being able to say it is something I was never able to do before, even when I was a woman pro. Like, I don't think I was able to even step into that role in my past lives, you know?
What do you think played the biggest role or was the biggest factor in having that growth happen, making that shift?
Other than being inside coaching club.
Well, do you think that it was? Like, I'm curious.
I think it was, yeah.
Is it like the work that we've done in there or getting coaching?
Yeah.
What do you think? Or just all of the above?
I think it's kind of a combination of everything. I think for me, going through the thought model process, like I had never thought of my thoughts that way, if that makes any sense. So like inside there's a framework that you use, and I had never looked at my thoughts and actually like looked at them, if that makes any sense. I
totally.
We
think them and then we believe that that's the reality.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think for me, it was being able to look back and say, oh, it's allowed to also just be a thought. It doesn't have to be the reality of the business or doesn't have to be the reality of the situation. I think that helped. I definitely think the people inside of the group, seeing them, like so much of what I get out of coaching is also other people getting coaching. Like, I think there's so many times where like things come up and I'm like, oh, wow, like that like hit home, you know, even though it wasn't something I was even, again, thinking about in the moment. Yeah, I think a lot of that. And I think just learning how to step into that leader, even inside of my business as like a team leader, I think has helped, because then it's allowed me to spark more trust in my team. So that way I can get out of client work and pursue other things like speaking or education. So it kind of all like were puzzle pieces that like all fit together. But I think a lot of it did stem out of like the coaching environment, especially because when I joined, I wasn't really positive like what I needed either. Yeah. And I think whenever we're joining something, we think that we have to have a clear direction, right? We're like, I'm going to join this for a year and I'm going to like have a very clear direction. And it was a time of my life where I didn't have any. So I was like, you know, I don't really know what I'm expecting. But I think it kind of helped me that I didn't know, because it allowed other things to open up that I probably would have not even considered were options in my life or business.
Yeah, totally.
I hope that made sense. I kind of went in.
It made sense to me.
Okay.
I think that some of this stuff is like, I sometimes talk about like the work that I do where I do these kind of interviews and I'm like, there's just a certain aspect of the kind of work I do and the kind of coaching that I believe in that you can't fully understand unless you experience it.
For sure. Yeah.
And so it's like, I could talk all day long about like what we do and how we do it and whatever, but it's like, unless you have experienced like the magic for yourself, it's really easy to be like, yeah, no, I don't need that. Or that's not what I need more money. And it's like, well, yes, but this is the process for more money.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yes, it's not like a funnel, but this is the process of like unblocking the stuff that's blocking you from money, having you step into like having a better, stronger, positive relationship with yourself, which allows you to show up in a totally different way for yourself and your team. That's why I always say that, like, I was never a giant goal person ever. And I still, this is going to sound really strange, but I still honestly am not a huge goal person. The reason that I teach goals and that I coach within the framework that we do is because the purpose of goals is not to hit them. The purpose of goals is to activate the growth.
For sure. Yeah. And I think even for me, like so much of my goal setting now isn't just the financial, but it also then I've seen the financial growth in my business. Like this year is already, like my mom's my accountant and she's already like, wow, like this year is exploding in sales. And it's funny because like most of my goals aren't always financial based, but yet they are what took me to get to this point where we're having months that I never thought were humanly possible as a business owner, you know, so
yeah,
it all works.
That's because the money is the result line, right? Like it's the byproduct of the growth, of the growth work.
Yeah, for
sure. And I think so many people don't realize that.
Yeah.
They don't understand that there's like the cause and effect. And sometimes that cause and effect isn't something that you would like, it's not what you think it is.
Yeah. And I think so much, and I think so much of like going back to where we're talking about the confidence, I think like something I'm realizing as you said that is like, so much of the confidence was also allowing me to then charge what we actually should be charging. And I think that's the funny part is, it's like, you have to do that mindset work. So it's not like immediate, right? It's not like within the first few months, I was like doubling my prices, but it like allowed me to set that mindset work so that now when I'm sending a proposal and it is double what it would have been a year ago, I don't second guess it. Like I am like, I don't try to negotiate it. I don't say, sorry, this is out of budget. I just am able to be like, this is fine. Like that, the price is what it is. And I think so much of that confidence did come out of, you know, it's like you said, it all goes together, right? So it's like confidence in myself. So then I'm willing to charge more and be more expensive. And then that's how you make more money. Like that's how you make the money.
And then there's the other factor of like that unshakable confidence and clarity in like who you are and what you're worth and what the work that your team puts out, the value of that. There is that, but there's also what having that avoids, which is if you don't have that and you say you get somebody that comes back and says no, or someone that questions your pricing or whatever, what can often trigger if you don't have that deeper confidence and sense of value is like changing all the things, changing your pricing, questioning it, spiraling out like all the things. And then like sabotaging the clients that are paying that. Like all of a sudden that's like, now you're questioning if they're getting what, you know, like it can just seep into everything.
Yeah.
In the most unfortunate way.
Yeah. And it's so funny because once you start spiraling as the business owner, then you start to think of, I need to change I don't know about mine's always, I need to change my website. Like my like go-to was like, I need to make a new landing page or I need to add a new offering. Like that was always my go-to in my business was like, oh, I need to redo something on my website when it like at the end of the day, like that was not at all
that was not the problem. I see a lot of people and I'm like, I kind of hesitate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. From the outside perspective, I'm not talking about coaching club people, but just like being in the world of online business and marketing, I see people do things. And because I have the lens of how I interpret people's actions, because I am always tracing it back to their feelings and their thoughts. Like I can see the patterns because I've been doing this for so long and I've had experience like behind the curtain for so many people. A lot of people's go-to is changing their Instagram bio.
Oh,
like,
because that's that fast
like
one.
Every like 2 weeks, like a new Instagram bio. I'm like,
that was the only thing I kept the same. But if you would have looked at my homepage, that would have been different every week. Like
that's amazing.
Like my bio would stay the same, but everything else would change. Like every page would change.
I love it.
It's the same idea.
Okay, so I have one last question about this. So now you can look back. You're at this vantage point and perspective where you look back over the past year and you're like, okay, now I see in hindsight the things that I did to increase the revenue in our business. And you can pinpoint to certain things. A year ago, you didn't have that perspective. What did you think a year ago you needed to do to make more money?
Oh God. Honestly, just book way more clients. Like, I used to think that the only way to make more money was, but not even booking more clients, but booking projects that only I could do. Because in my mind, the biggest profitable money-making packages are only the ones that I can do.
Like,
And
you are the,
yeah,
like, you're the value.
yes. And so like, in my mind, it was like the only way was like, we needed to offer certain things that like the team couldn't do, but like I could do and make profit. Because as a business owner, we also forget that we also are like, we tend to think of like, okay, my employee is hourly, right? So my employees are hourly. It's going to take this many hours. Like, that's how we think of stuff. And then we forget that, oh, but I took 8 hours to do it.
Yeah.
You know, like
okay, so
my
in
time
your
mattered.
mind, making more money meant you working more,
Yes.
doing more, being busier.
Yeah. And just like, yeah. And just taking on more projects versus like more projects that had enough profit. You know, it was just more like, how can we just churn money in, honestly?
Yeah. Do you think are you busier now and working more now than you were a year ago?
No. Alexa, stop. Sorry, my Alexa decided to give me a notification. No. So I'm working, my goal is to work way less. So I'm at the trajectory where I am working less, but we're making way more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in some ways, to make more money, it was actually the opposite of what you thought.
Yeah. To make more money, I had to, again, step into being confident in like the business. So that way we could send those proposals. But I also think some of it was like stepping into that like thought leadership and like being able to lead the business. So people were more confident to work with us, because I think a lot of times with wedding pros, like in the niche that I'm in, they're not very trusting. So they need to you need to work with certain people for them to trust you too. So it's like, for me, it was getting to that stage where like we started working with the type of clients that I had always wanted to work with. And I think that came out of the confidence, was like being able to take on those larger projects with the people that had authority, and then it kind of like went from there.
Totally. So the way I always see this is like identifying kind of like what you want your business to step into, or like the who you want, what you want your business to be in the world, and kind of identifying that.
Yeah.
And then like taking the actual steps to like becoming that as a business or as a business owner. Is that how you would describe it? Like, were you clear on like, this is who I want to be in my market and I'm going to become that?
Yeah. And I think I'd always kind of known who I wanted to be, but I was way too scared to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
like I was terrified.
I smile not because I smile because I think that that's most people.
Yeah.
I think most people that come to me deep down know they have a dream, they have a desire, they have this something that lights them up, but they're like sometimes even afraid to admit it to themselves.
For 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't make it happen if you can't even, you have to not only admit it to yourself, but you have to go be it out in the world.
Yeah. Which is hard.
Scary.
Scary.
It is. Yeah, it really is. Okay. So I want to know what do you think the most valuable piece of being a coaching club is?
I mean, outside of you as a coach, because I feel like that's kind of like why, I joined too, but definitely having you as a coach. But like I said, I think definitely a lot of the community is a big part of it. I think whenever you're able to find a community that can be so open and honest and transparent, I think is huge. Because I've been in containers where only half the people were open and the other half weren't. So it was kind of like, you couldn't really see into them as a person. And I think that whenever you can be in a group, I mean, I've cried how many times? Like whenever you're comfortable enough that like you can just start crying and like you're not worried about it, I think is huge. So for me, I think it was the community and that trust factor of like knowing that everyone in the group has a different type of business. And I think I also love that too, because I didn't want to only be around other small marketing agencies. Like, I was like, I don't want to be around that 24/7 because there's so many things that I can learn from people who are not small marketing agencies, so like
Completely.
having artists and creatives and people who are in like thought, like having the variety of people for me has really helped me because I feel like every question that people ask relates to everybody, even if my business looks nothing like theirs or, or I don't do what they do, it's still like, oh, but these are all things that I've definitely thought before, so I think for me, the variety and then the openness of everybody, that it is transparent, because that's the only way you can really grow is to be honest about the hard stuff.
Totally. And I'm so thankful. I said this at the beginning, but I'm so thankful for you to be one of the people that stands up and does that very openly, because that's the most important thing, to provide a safe place is like, if my clients aren't opening up, I can't show them that it's safe. It's like, it has to be this two-way thing. And I set that tone, but if people aren't kind of like being the leaders and doing it, you're not showing the others in the group that it's okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm so thankful for how you show up and who you are.
I think
inside.
I called on like I think I cried on like the second or third call. It was pretty early in. I was like, well, we're going deep. So
Hey,
here we go.
Hey, I mean,
but not a bad cry, but like a lethargic, like good, like
I don't believe in bad cries, but totally. And that is so important that you can do that so that you can see. Sometimes you have to do that to even like see what the hell is underneath, what's really going on.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So for people that are like considering, I have two questions. Let's start with, for people that are like, that have been following me for a while, know that I'm a coach, kind of know who I work with, have seen some things about like the way that I work. How would you, from a client's perspective, because I can't do this, how would you describe the way that I work as a coach that's different from other coaches or like other mastermind groups? Because I think if we've never like done multiple kinds of coaching, we can look at it and be like, I don't get the difference.
Yeah. I think so. I think, that's a really good question. So I would say one of the biggest differences that I see is so much of the coaching is focused on you, but also like what is best for you. And I think so much coaching is about what's best for your business. I think a lot of times coaching and the online world is what is best for your business. And it can be super arbitrary. Again, money, right? Like 10K months or, those catchphrases that people use. It's easy to get sucked into that, into thinking that that is what it needs to be. And I think it's also the coaching, like because it helps you define yourself, it helps you define what success means to you, which again was huge for me because I was in the mindset that again, what success meant numbers. Success meant I have to make this much a month in my business to take home this much revenue. Like that was, to me, was super linear. Like there was no other path. And I think having a coaching style that is so much focused on like the amount of times that you said to me, but like, would you want to do that? Or like, would that make you happy? Made me think, oh, wait, I can have a say in that. Like I'm allowed to like, I'm allowed to only do stuff that makes me happy. Like to me, that just seemed like a very foreign concept as a business owner, because my mind was again, always what's best for the business, what's best for the business and the team. And like, and so
it's so, just interrupt really quickly. It's so interesting that you say that, because the patterns that we play out in multiple areas in our life. And what you're describing right now is you're describing you delegating your power to this like structure that was imposed on you about what success means in a business.
Yeah.
You were like delegating to, well, is that the right way? Or is that, like I learned XYZ, so am I doing that?
Yeah.
And when you're delegating your power to a structure that someone else has said is the right structure, what you're not doing in the process is you're not building trust with yourself. You're building the authority outside of you. And in order to become a thought leader, in order to become someone that people seek out, in order to become a business leader that has carved out an important space in the market, the most important thing is that you see yourself as an authority, that you trust yourself, that you are asking yourself those questions instead of delegating that authority.
I mean, look at you, you're coaching me right now.
And
I mean, that's so right. No, that is.
Which is my biggest pet peeve with the online business world and the coaching world is it's all these people prescribing what to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, as long as you're prescribing what to do to people, you are breaking down the trust that they have with themselves. And as long as you're doing that, they are not building themselves up to be the person that they need to be who they want to be out in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I always thought of, like when it came to my business, it was like, my packages have to look like this. Everything has to look like that. Like there was always like a formula, right? It was
because at some point, some random person told me, or I heard it on some podcast. Yeah.
And it was like, I have to have XYZ and these things in my business in order to be seen as whatever success meant. And I think that's why for me, I felt like I never felt successful. And like, it explained why I never felt like I did enough. Like, like other people would say, oh my gosh, wow. And then I would be like, oh, it's nothing. Like, it's literally not even a blip in the world, And I think so much of that growth came from me being able to like see that like, it can be successful in any form. Like, like it doesn't have to be whatever society says it's going to be. And so, a big part of it, I think, was that in terms of my growth was being able to be like, this is successful for me, for what I want in my life and what I want for my employees, like the type of life I want to give them, the financial freedom to pay them. Like that to me is more success than what other people tell me.
Completely. That's why and this is obviously, you can tell it's like a big deal to me. Like if I see somebody who's building what the outside person would describe as a successful business, but it's not in alignment with their personal values or the way they want to live their life, like the lifestyle that they want to have, which isn't always financial, to me, that's a failure.
Yeah.
Like, I think that success has to check both boxes. I think it needs to be designing the business around the life that you want and the values that you want to stand for, because ultimately you're going to put some work into this thing. So it's significantly easier to put work into something that you really value than to bump up against those all the time. Yeah. And then the other thing is, a growing, thriving business is bringing in a lot of revenue, but it's possible to do both.
Yeah. Which is, something I didn't really think was going to be possible.
Yeah, it's totally possible to do both. And so that's why I'm always looking at it through the lens of like so much deconditioning of what people have told you have to do before. That's so much of the work that comes up.
Yeah. And I think whenever you're working with a coach, I think something that I was naturally scared of was just simply, is this coach going to think my business looks okay?
Yeah.
If I pull back the curtain, are they going to be like, oh, you do it like this, and like, I never felt that with you. Like there was like, like there wasn't that pressure of like, oh my gosh, if I start working with this coach, they're immediately going to tell me that this is wrong. this needs to burn down. You need to replace that. Like you're paying your team too much, or you're not paying them enough, or like whatever. But it was refreshing because like that wasn't the case. I didn't like feel like I was on an operating table or something.
My literal 2 questions would be like, are you happy? Are you making the money you want? Like if somebody says yes to those 2, I'm like, okay, you're good.
Yeah, which is so much better because sometimes, in an online world, it's so much different, right? It's like, oh, are you doing this way or whatever funnels? I don't know, whatever keywords are being used, like that's like.
And this is where I tend to get really fired up is the thing that they tend to judge and scrutinize you on just so happens to be what they sell.
Yeah, I know. It's always like, your funnels are broken and you're like,
that's what pisses me off. It's like, oh, you've learned that like the art of selling really well because that's what you're going to criticize.
Yeah.
So that then you can sell me your shit.
Yeah.
Like there are, that's where I start to get really mad.
Yeah. But you see it all the time. It's like it's so common in our world that like that made me second think, do I even want to have a coach? Because do I want to like show them the back end of my business in a way? Because like, what if it's not how they would do it?
Yeah. And which to come back to what actually grows the business, which is like building your sense of self.
Yeah.
It literally is doing the opposite. It's tearing you down.
Yeah. Because it makes you second guess. And then again, am I successful? Well, probably not now. Like, it's like, it just.
Exactly. And then it's like, well, I guess I got to buy another program.
Yep. Got to build another funnel or something. I don't know,
Yeah. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I care so much about like supporting the human and then that human supporting the business.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're at time. We've been talking a long time and I am so thankful for like all of your insights and just the conversation and all of it. And I have like one final question and then you can add anything if you want. So, there are some people that come into coaching club and they are in for a year and then they're like, I've gotten the growth that I want. And then they go. Mm-hmm. You're someone who has just started your second year in coaching club. And so I'm really curious through your point of view, what was your decision to keep going? Why was that something that you wanted to have in your life and your business?
I honestly didn't even think twice about rejoining that. Like whenever it was up, I was like, yeah, okay, just here's my credit card. So I didn't even like, think that I didn't need it. I think a lot of it for me was just like, I think now that I've seen the amount of personal growth, like I am excited to see more. Like I'm almost like, well, what else can I do within this business? Like if all of these things are if after the last year, things are starting to get more in alignment, and I think for me, it's also, but I also know that it's personal growth is continuous. Like, I feel like as someone, I've, been medicated for anxiety and been seeing a therapist since I was like 11. So I know it's like, it never ends. Even when we think that like, we don't need anything anymore, there's always something that pops up. So for me, it was an instant, like, yeah, I'm definitely going to keep going because I was like, while I'm seeing the pieces come together and I'm really happy with the growth and I'm like seeing the money, it's like, I also know that this is just like the very beginning of what it could become, and I feel like the more that I can grow, it gives me the ability to do more in my business. But I also know that as anything grows, you hit roadblocks. Like, I just know that what if I start doing this and I start hitting these roadblocks? Like, I just know that naturally, I guess also as a wedding planner, something always goes wrong at some point. So it's just like, I know at some point I'm going to be like, okay, crap, what do I do now? Like, how do I work through this process? Like, I just know it's just continuous. Like, we just have to continue growing to see the
results. Which I think is such a good, like, for anybody who does not, who is slightly triggered or doesn't buy into any of those thoughts that were just presented, I would check yourself because really early on in business, I was of the mindset of like, well, you just figure out like a method and then you're done learning, done growing, done whatever, you go do that and you're successful. Kind of how like, school presents itself. Like you learn, you get a degree, you're good to go. And that's just not how business works. There's always ongoing challenges, and those ongoing challenges are literally your key to growth. They're the key to opportunities. Because if you don't work through them, that's what causes the plateau. And so it's like, most of my people, I would say all of my people, are people that are like dreamers and people who have these big visions. And it's like, with every level, you get a new vision, you get a new goal, you get a new dream. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. Not that everyone has to have that, but I think that it's such a beautiful thing. So I was curious personally to know the answer to that, because I purposefully designed and created Coaching Club as intended to be an ongoing support system for creative business owners. Not to be like this thing that a container you come in for 6 months and explode your growth and go. This is really meant to be like, there are so many people out there who I believe that almost on a daily basis, you need support in your business as a
100%.
CEO, right? Like, it might not be emergencies every day, but like, none of us were born to do this alone. And so I see that as partially my role, to provide that to people in a capacity that allows you to just do it indefinitely.
And like you said, like, I think so many things, it's like, oh, I'm set up for success, it's gonna be fine. And like, that's just not how it works. That's just not how it works naturally. Like, I think I just like, I know that so well, of like, stuff happens and there's gonna be hard decisions. Like, I recently had to make really hard business decisions, and like, making any decision in your business, sometimes even the little ones, you still need to think through. So for me, it was just like a really natural, like, like, the whole path for success, like, you don't just like, it's like this, it's a windy, so it's like, you still need support, even up here or down here. Like, they both need support.
Yeah, totally. Okay, awesome. All right. Do you have any closing remarks? I am so thankful that you've been here and for being open with what you've shared and all the things. And this was really meant to help people like get an understanding, but also see what's possible, because I think so many people are stuck. So any closing remarks? If not, I also want you to share like how people can find you and connect with you if any of this resonated with them.
I mean, other than, I think you should really join. I think like, I feel like if any of the stuff that Libby teaches feels like you feel it, then I definitely think it's worth it 100%. I mean, I try to bring people in myself, because I'm like, come on, like, you guys need it. Like, this is for you. So I think it's great. I think that it's different in a good way than any other coaching that I've gotten. And I think especially if you're someone like me who is kind of fed up with like the guru methods of like running a business. Like, it was so refreshing to see a different format as a business owner.
Thank you for saying
that. If they want to connect with me, I'm Ava and the Bee on all of the platforms.
On all the things.
I'm just
website, Instagram,
bees.
all the things. And when we post this, I'll post links and stuff. So
cool.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing you, for being open, for taking the time,
for having
all of it.
me.
Okay, cool. I'll see you later.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.